Hey guys, what's up? My name is Maddie and I'm an online health and fitness coach. And something that you might not know about me is that I have PCOS. That's right, a personal trainer has PCOS. Crazy, right? But before we get into it, I would really appreciate it if you guys like this video and subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every Friday at noon covering all different types of lessons. I'm basically trying to nix out all of the fads that are out there and help women actually get a proper understanding of their bodies and how weight loss works. And that really kind of leads me into my topic of the day, which is PCOS. And the fact that there are so many women who are out there who are probably undiagnosed, don't even realize they're having it, or are just experiencing a whole bunch of hormonal imbalance issues and are going to doctors for advice and they're told the same thing over and over again. At least if you're like me. And what is this advice, you may ask? It's the classic, well, your symptoms would go away if you just lost weight. But what they're not telling you is that when you have hormonal imbalance issues, weight loss can become very, very difficult. Because unlike what you hear slathered all over the internet, it is not simply calories in versus calories out when you have a hormonal imbalance issue. Which I'm sure you've probably figured out by now because you've tried eating in a calorie deficit. And if anything, it might even make you gain more weight, which gets confusing because you are going to all these doctors and specialists and all they're telling you to do is lose weight, but they're not telling you how. I want to talk about PCOS in itself because there are so many women out there who get diagnosed with PCOS, but they don't even know that there are certain types. Yeah. I know, when I found this out, my brain was shattered. But yes, there are 4 different PCOS types and they are not treated the same way. So when you are diagnosed with PCOS, there is no one size fits all in so many different aspects. That comes into play with what caused it in the first place, how you treat it, and what is going to fix yours in particular. Because you can't make PCOS go away, but you can severely lessen the symptoms to help you manage it a lot better with your lifestyle. And that is what I'm here to talk about with you today. And I'm guessing when you went to the doctors about this, you probably didn't get very clear answers. Did you? Comment below what the doctors told you, because my doctor personally told me, first of all, my doctors hardly even diagnosed me. It took me going to 6 different doctors and cherry picking all the different results I got from each one to figure out what I even had. My doctors told me to slash my calories down to 1,200 and to start doing HIIT exercises. 1,200 calories is way below my basal metabolic rate. I'm 5'9". That is just very unhelpful advice, but suffice the point, I have heard many different horror stories of different things that doctors suggest in order to treat PCOS that do not work because they are not diagnosing your PCOS type. And another thing I would like to point out, when I am giving these types, you can be multiple types. Let me explain that. The reason for this is because one type, if not treated properly, can trigger another type. And you will start seeing that as I start explaining this more and more, but keep that in the back of your mind. You might be experiencing symptoms from several different types, and if that confuses you, that's totally fine. You might have 2, 3, 4, 1, all the different types. I personally had 3 out of the 4 types, so don't let that freak you out. But now what I'm gonna do is start listing off the types, so that way you can start actually figuring out what your type even is. And the first one is inflammation PCOS. This is when your immune system is chronic. It's very chronically activated. There's something in your body called inflammatory cytokines, If I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I'm not a science major, so I'm so sorry. But these, when you have inflammatory PCOS, are secreted at lower levels. But when this happens, this signals for your body to produce lower amounts of testosterone and also insulin resistance. Which, remember how I said earlier on in this video, if you have one type, this can lead to several other types. That is a key factor, because basically if you have inflammation PCOS, this can later on trigger the most common type of PCOS, which we're going to talk about next. So keep that in mind. But some common symptoms of inflammation PCOS is cystic acne, bloating, a weight plateau if you've been on a weight loss journey, chronic fatigue, IBS, allergies flaring up, joint pain, anxiety and irritability, basically all of these inflammatory symptoms. So remember when I said this can trigger insulin resistance? That is the second type of PCOS, and this is the most common type. So when you go to the doctor, most people find out they have PCOS because they realize they have insulin resistance. For me, that was my case. People with insulin resistance really start realizing they have it because of terrible cravings they have, and they realize they start having really low blood sugar control. What insulin resistance is doing inside your body is causing sugar to store as fat instead of burning as energy like it usually does. This process triggers high testosterone, and this high testosterone triggers irregular periods and cysts. The third PCOS type is called adrenal fatigue, and this one is really common with people who are on a heavy weight loss journey. So you are probably exercising a lot, not getting a lot of sleep. You're constantly in that fight or flight mode, and your body is starting to respond to that. You'll start noticing symptoms of exhaustion, a lot of stress, high cortisol levels, anxiety. Instead of weight loss, you're gonna experience weight gain and also irregular periods. Whether that means you skip some or you might start having double periods, they're just gonna be way funky. So you have something in your body called DHEAS hormones. When you have adrenal fatigue, these get elevated, and these trigger high cortisol responses. This is what triggers your PCOS symptoms. And then your blood sugar starts becoming dysregulated. And when this happens, you can start seeing the symptoms of both adrenal fatigue and insulin resistance. And when that happens, with high insulin and high cortisol, this is when the weight starts piling up out of nowhere, especially in your midsection region. And y'all, this is what happened to me. But I'll get into that later on. But basically, your stress is triggering anxiety, weight gain, and your irregular periods, just a whole lot of things that you don't want. But now we're gonna move on into our fourth and final type, which is hyperthyroidism. This is when your thyroid gland is producing too little of the thyroid hormone. And this is responsible for your metabolism and also influences your sex hormones. A lot of symptoms that can be seen with hyperthyroidism are things like irregular ovulation, some insulin resistance, slow metabolism, hair loss, and of course, the beloved weight gain. So now that we've gone through all these types, I'm gonna show you how the types can lead into each other by telling you a bit about how I even found out I had PCOS. So the first symptoms I personally noticed is chronic fatigue, weight gain, irritability, anxiety, cystic acne, and hair along here, and irregular periods. Instead of having periods skip, I was having double periods. But that was the only symptom that I was concerned about until I realized I had gained 30 pounds. I literally gained 30 pounds in a month time span and was suddenly chronically bloated without changing anything about my life. And that is when I finally decided, I was like, okay, something is wrong with me. I need to go to the doctors. And the doctors were not giving me any clear answers. They were all just telling me to lose weight and that if I lost weight, all my symptoms were going away. And I told them I was concerned I had PCOS because I was talking to a lot of girls online who had the same symptoms and were diagnosed with it. and I was basically being brushed aside. If this is happening to you, I really highly suggest being your own biggest advocate, and that means demanding things. So I would go in and I would demand specific blood panels. My blood panel showed that I had elevated cortisol and testosterone levels, but that is essentially where my doctors stopped. They were like, okay, well, you just, you know, try to lower those levels and you'll be fine. But they still weren't diagnosing me with anything. I did some more research and I decided to go to an endocrinologist. I was still having irregular periods and I still had the weight, I still had all of the symptoms. And my endocrinologist basically just said, hey, you know, lose weight, eat 1,200 calories, you'll be fine. And so from there, I just started doing my own damn research. I decided to go off birth control, which did help a lot with the irregular periods, but it still didn't answer a lot of my questions. So then I went and got my BMR tested. From what I mentioned earlier in my story, when I told you the endocrinologist had told me to eat 1,200 calories, your BMR is your basal metabolic rate, which is the minimum amount of calories your body needs to sustain itself. Like, I always put it this way, if you were hospitalized on bed rest in a coma, that is the amount of calories the hospital would give you into like a drip, however they do that, just in order to sustain your comatose body, in order to sustain life. Like, that is your BMR. I had always known, because, hello, health and fitness coach, I had always known that mine was around 1,600. And so, number one, an endocrinologist randomly throwing out a number like 1,200 is very dangerous, but also promoting eating disorder habits. If I was someone who wasn't educated on a BMR, I would have listened. And I did listen back in the day when influencers were throwing out that number, and it caused eating disorder habits. And I warned my endocrinologist that I used to have those habits. So, whole different moral of the story. But I went to go get my actual BMR tested at a thing called a DEXA scan, because basically I was worried that something was wrong with my metabolism at this point. All the doctors were telling me that I didn't have PCOS, nothing was wrong with me. I just needed to fix my 2 elevated hormones and blah, blah, blah. So I went to get my DEXA scan, and the lady who was testing my metabolism, you have to breathe through a tube, and that is how they test it. And she told me I should get tested. She asked me if I was on keto. And I was like, absolutely not. I do not believe in keto at all. And she was like, oh, well, sweetheart, you have an insulin resistance. You might want to get tested for that. And I was shocked. I was like, well, why did you ask me if I was on keto? And she told me that a lot of patients who come in and get those kind of results are on keto and they're cutting carbs because the results show insulin resistance because their body isn't processing carbs. And so that's how I found out I had insulin resistance, I had high cortisol, I had high testosterone, I was having all of these symptoms. I went to my gynecologist and I did have cysts in my ovaries. So put all these symptoms together, classic case of insulin resistant and adrenal fatigue PCOS, mixed with some inflammatory, which is how it probably started. And because I didn't notice the symptoms right away, it skyballed into all those things. Since then, I've been able to change my types and basically minimize them very much. I've been able to lose the weight. I've been able to basically only minimize my symptoms into having acne flares about once a month. I still have the chin hairs, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So your PCOS is 100% completely manageable. And if you need help with that, please feel free to reach out to me. As a health and fitness coach, literally my specialty is helping women with PCOS manage their symptoms and lose the weight if they want to, because it is something that I felt so crazy about for so long. If that is something that you personally would like help with, feel free to apply for coaching. My link is in the bio down below, or you can DM me on Instagram. That link is also in the bio. Either way, my DMs are open, my applications are always open. No matter what, I always want you guys to know that you're not alone in this, because I felt so alone when I first started. And it took me so long to even figure out that there were even freaking types. My doctor didn't tell me any of this. I hope this video is very helpful for you guys. Remember, none of this is a diagnosis. I am not diagnosing y'all with anything. I am no doctor. I am just someone who has PCOS, who wish that this information had been provided to me when I was going through the worst of it. And hopefully it helps you figure out what the heck is even going on with your body. Please comment down below if you found this video helpful. Tell me what your PCOS type is. But like I said before in this video, I post health and fitness lessons every single Friday at noon. So please subscribe if you like this content. And if you have a video request, leave that in the comments below as well. So until next Friday, I will see you guys later. Bye y'all.